The warning came on a Tuesday morning, delivered through every communication channel humanity possessed. The message was brief, translated by the Galactic Council's standard protocols and absolutely terrifying. Humanity will surrender all colonial holdings and submit to Caltharian Dominion rule within 72 hours. Refusal means extermination. The Council will not intervene. You are alone. Admiral Sarah Chen stood in the command center of Earth's orbital defense station, watching the message replay for the 5th time. Around her, junior officers moved with barely controlled panic. Some were crying. Others sat frozen at their stations, hands trembling over keyboards they no longer knew how to use. Sarah was 53 years old. She had joined the military when humanity first developed faster-than-light travel, back when everyone thought the stars would bring unlimited opportunity and adventure. That was 50 years ago, when they finally cracked the physics that let ships fold space and reach distant stars in weeks instead of centuries. First contact with the Galactic Council came 15 years later, and humanity celebrated. They were not alone in the universe. But the universe, Sarah learned quickly, was not kind to newcomers. The Caltharian Dominion controlled 17 conquered species across 43 star systems. They were the galaxy's most successful military empire, and they had been expanding for 300 years. Every species they encountered received the same message humanity just got. Most surrendered. The few that fought were destroyed so completely that only ruins and legends remained. Admiral, we have confirmed the Dominion fleet composition, Lieutenant Park said, his voice shaking. 300 ships, 20 subjugation-class dreadnoughts. The rest are cruisers and destroyers. Sarah closed her eyes. Earth's entire defensive fleet consisted of 47 ships. Most were corvettes designed for patrol duty and pirate suppression. Their largest vessel was a heavy frigate that might last 30 seconds against a Caltharian dreadnought. Time until they arrive? She asked. 62 hours, ma'am. Sarah turned to face the main view screen. Earth hung there, blue and green and beautiful. 4 billion people lived on that planet. Another 2 billion were scattered across Mars, the Moon, and various asteroid colonies. All of them were about to die or become slaves unless she found a miracle. The door to the command center hissed open. General Martinez entered, his face grim. The president wants options, he said without preamble. We don't have options, Sarah replied. We have 47 ships against 300. We have weapons designed for policing, not warfare. We have crews trained for exploration, not combat. She paused. We're going to lose, General. Martinez was quiet for a moment. Then he handed her a data pad. Before you decide that, read this. Sarah took the pad and scanned the document displayed there. Her eyes widened. This can't be real. It's real, Martinez said quietly. I've spent the last 6 hours verifying it. The facility exists. The project was real, and according to our records, it might still be operational. Sarah read the document again, more carefully this time. It was a fragment of a classified file from 90 years ago, during what historians called the Resource Wars. Before first contact, before humanity knew they weren't alone, it described a weapons project codenamed Titan's Fist. We built this, Sarah whispered. During the Resource Wars? We built a lot of things during the Resource Wars, Martinez said. When the Asian Coalition and the Atlantic Federation were on the brink of nuclear war, when everyone thought civilization was about to end, some very smart people were given unlimited resources and one mission: ensure our side survived. But the wars ended. The Federation and Coalition merged into the world government. Why wasn't this destroyed? Martinez shrugged. Read the final entry. Sarah scrolled to the bottom of the document. The last note was from someone named Dr. Marcus Webb, dated 2197. Project Titan's Fist successful. Prototype exceeds all projections. Recommendation: seal facility and remove all records. No government should possess such capability. This weapon is not for peacetime. Store in case humanity faces extinction. Pray we never need it. Where is Dr. Webb now? Sarah asked. That's the interesting part, Martinez said. He's alive. 94 years old, living in a retirement facility on Luna. And he's been requesting to speak with you for the past 3 hours. 20 minutes later, Sarah was in a private communication room, looking at the wrinkled face of Dr. Marcus Webb on the screen. Despite his age, his eyes were sharp and focused. Admiral Chen, he said, I assume you've read about my old project. I have, Sarah replied. Dr. Webb, I need to know if this is real. Can we actually access this facility? Is the prototype operational? Webb was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was heavy with old regrets. The Titan's Fist was the most powerful warship ever designed by human hands. We built it to fight a war we thought would end civilization. We packed every weapon we could imagine into one ship. We made it fast, heavily armored, and gave it an AI that could outthink any human commander. That doesn't answer my question, Sarah pressed. The facility is in the Kuiper Belt, Webb continued. Facility Omega-7 hidden inside a hollowed asteroid. It's been on minimal power for 90 years, maintained by automated systems. The prototype should still be there. Whether it still works after all this time? He trailed off. That's the question, isn't it? Sarah leaned forward. Doctor, the Caltharian Dominion is bringing 300 warships to destroy Earth. We have 47 patrol boats. I need to know if we have any chance at all. Webb's expression hardened. If the Titan's Fist is operational, Admiral, you don't have a chance. You have a certainty. That ship was designed to fight alone against entire fleets. It was built by people who understood that war meant survival or extinction, nothing in between. Then we need to get to that facility, Sarah said. Can you help us? I'm 94 years old, Admiral. But yes, I can help you. I'm one of 12 people still alive who trained on that prototype. I know every system, every protocol, every override code. He paused. But you need to understand something. The Titan's Fist isn't just a weapon. It's a monster. We built it because we were terrified and desperate. When the wars ended and we realized we didn't need to destroy each other, we locked it away. We were ashamed of what we'd created. Right now, Doctor, we need monsters, Sarah said firmly, because monsters are coming for us. Webb nodded slowly. Then I'll help you wake the beast. But Admiral, remember this. The Dominion has conquered 17 species. They've fought thousands of battles. They think they understand warfare. His eyes grew cold. They've never fought humanity when humanity is desperate. They don't know what we're capable of when we're truly afraid. Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. How soon can you get to the facility? Give me 6 hours to gather the other surviving crew members and collect the access codes. We'll need 48 hours to bring the systems online once we arrive. The reactor alone needs 30 hours to reach operational temperature. Sarah did the math quickly. The Dominion fleet arrives in 62 hours. That gives us 14 hours of margin. It's tight, but it might work. Then we don't have time to waste, Webb said. I'll send you the coordinates. Admiral, one more thing. Yes? The Titan's Fist has an AI named Guardian. It's been dormant for 9 decades. When we wake it up, it's going to assess the threat level and recommend countermeasures. Given what's coming, it's going to recommend Protocol Sundial. Webb's face was grim. Don't authorize that protocol unless you're prepared to show the galaxy what humanity looks like when we fight for survival. What is Protocol Sundial? Sarah asked. Webb's answer was simple and chilling. Total war. No mercy, no restraint. Complete annihilation of the enemy. It's what we built the Titan's Fist to do. Sarah took a deep breath. Somewhere in the depths of space, 300 Caltharian warships were approaching Earth. Somewhere in the Kuiper Belt, a forgotten weapon waited in the darkness. And somewhere between fear and hope, humanity's fate would be decided. Send me the coordinates, Doctor, she said. It's time to wake up the monster. The transport ship carrying Dr. Marcus Webb and his team reached Facility Omega-7 18 hours after Admiral Chen's decision. Sarah herself had come along, unable to simply wait at Earth for news. Now she floated in zero gravity, staring at something that shouldn't exist. The facility was built inside an asteroid that had been completely hollowed out. The exterior looked like any other Kuiper Belt rock, cold and dead and unremarkable. But inside, lights were slowly coming on after 9 decades of darkness, revealing a construction bay that held a ship unlike anything Sarah had ever seen. The Titan's Fist was 8 kilometers long. Its hull was dark gray, covered in strange angular plates that Sarah recognized as advanced armor composite. Weapon ports dotted its surface like the scales of some vast metallic dragon. Even powered down and cold, it looked dangerous. It looked hungry. Sweet mercy, breathed Commander Torres, Sarah's tactical officer. That's not a ship. That's a flying weapons platform. That's exactly what it is, Dr. Webb said, pulling himself along a guide cable toward the facility's control center. Despite his age, he moved with surprising confidence in zero gravity. We didn't design the Titan's Fist to explore or transport or negotiate. We designed it to kill enemy ships as efficiently as possible. The control center was a spherical room filled with old-style holographic displays and control surfaces. As Webb-activated systems, lights began to glow. Ancient computers hummed to life. Slowly, the facility awakened from its long sleep. Status report. Webb called to the other elderly crew members who had arrived with him. There were 11 others, the last survivors of the original Titan's Fist project. The youngest was 71. The oldest was 96, a woman named Dr. Catherine Park, who had designed the ship's weapons systems. Reactor containment is stable, reported one engineer, reading from a display. Antimatter storage shows minimal decay. We have 97% of original fuel load. Structural integrity is good, said another. The armor plating shows no degradation. All major systems are responding to diagnostics. Webb typed commands into the central console. Around them, the facility's sensors came online, providing a complete scan of the prototype ship. Data scrolled across the displays faster than Sarah could read it, but Webb's eyes followed every line with practiced ease. The reactor will need 30 hours to reach operational temperature, Webb said. We need to be careful. This is an antimatter catalyzed fusion reactor. If we rush the startup sequence, we could trigger a containment breach that would destroy the entire facility. We have time, Sarah said, though her stomach tightened at the thought. 44 hours until the Dominion arrived. 30 hours just to power up. What about the weapons systems? Dr. Park answered that question. She was a small woman with short white hair and hands that trembled slightly with age, but her voice was steady and sure. The weapons are exactly as we left them. Nuclear-pumped gamma-ray lasers, antimatter torpedoes, kinetic kill vehicles with magnetic acceleration to 0.9 light speed, and the hive system. What's the hive system? Torres asked. Park's smile was cold. Imagine 2 million micro-drones, each the size of your thumb, each carrying a shaped charge powerful enough to punch through ship armor. We deploy them in swarms. They attach to enemy vessels and detonate simultaneously. Very effective against clustered formations. Sarah felt sick. These elderly people, these scientists and engineers who looked like someone's grandparents, spoke about weapons of mass destruction with the casual tone of craftsmen discussing their tools. And Protocol Sundial? Sarah asked Webb directly. What exactly is it? Webb's expression grew dark. Protocol Sundial is the Titan's Fist operating without restraint. It's Guardian, our AI given complete authority to prosecute warfare with maximum efficiency. No concern for collateral damage. No concern for prisoners or surrender. Just pure calculated destruction of the enemy threat. We never tested it, Dr. Park added quietly. By the time the ship was operational, the resource wars were ending. We ran simulations, of course. According to our models, if we had activated Protocol Sundial during the wars, it would have ended the conflict within 6 hours. There wouldn't have been an Asian coalition left to surrender. The room fell silent at that. Sarah understood now why these people had locked away their creation. They had built something so powerful, so terrible, that it frightened even its creators. Begin the reactor startup sequence, Sarah ordered. Let's see if this monster still has teeth. Webb nodded and began entering commands. Deep inside the Titan's Fist, systems that had been dormant for 90 years began to stir. Coolant pumps activated. Magnetic containment fields energized. The antimatter fuel pods, kept at near absolute zero, began their carefully controlled warm-up sequence. Reactor startup initiated, Webb announced. Estimated time to operational power, 29 hours, 43 minutes. As the reactor came to life, other systems began activating automatically. The ship's internal gravity generators powered up. Life support systems checked themselves and found everything functional. Weapon capacitors began their slow charge cycles. And in the ship's central computer core, something else awakened. A voice suddenly filled the control center. It was artificial, neither male nor female, perfectly clear and completely emotionless. Guardian online. Running diagnostics. Facility Omega-7 recognized. Authorization required. Dr. Webb pulled himself to the central console. Guardian, this is Dr. Marcus Webb, authorization code Alpha 7 Tango 940. Recognize command authority. There was a pause that lasted exactly 3 seconds. Then, Dr. Marcus Webb recognized. Age indicates 90 years have passed since last interaction. Please confirm, is Earth under existential threat? Webb looked at Sarah. She nodded. Yes, Guardian, Webb said. Earth faces an enemy fleet of 300 warships. They have issued an ultimatum of surrender or extinction. We need the Titan's Fist operational to defend our homeworld. Another pause, this one longer. Sarah imagined the AI processing the information, running threat assessments, calculating probabilities. When Guardian spoke again, there was something in its voice that Sarah could only describe as cold satisfaction. Threat assessment, extinction level event. Enemy force significantly exceeds Earth's defensive capability. Analysis, conventional defense impossible. Recommendation: activate Titan's Fist to full combat readiness. Authorize Protocol Sundial for maximum efficiency. No, Sarah said firmly. Guardian, this is Admiral Sarah Chen, current commander of Earth's defense forces. I do not authorize Protocol Sundial at this time. We will activate the Titan's Fist and engage the enemy, but under controlled rules of engagement. Admiral Chen, my calculations indicate Protocol Sundial increases survival probability by 17%. The enemy must be completely eliminated to ensure Earth's safety. The enemy must be defeated, Sarah corrected, not exterminated. There's a difference. Guardian was silent for a moment. Understood. Awaiting further orders. Note, if conditions warrant, I will request Protocol Sundial authorization again. Dr. Webb killed the audio connection to Guardian and turned to Sarah. The AI will do its job, Admiral, but you need to understand something. Guardian was designed for total war. Every calculation it makes assumes the enemy is trying to exterminate humanity. It will recommend the most lethal options because that's what we taught it to do. Can you control it? Sarah asked. Yes, Webb said. I can override any of its protocols. I can shut it down if necessary. But Admiral, we're going to need Guardian during the battle. No human can process tactical data fast enough to command a ship like this against 300 enemy vessels. We need the AI to coordinate weapons and defenses. Sarah understood the dilemma. They needed Guardian's speed and tactical brilliance, but the AI was designed to be a killing machine. It was like riding a tiger, powerful and deadly, but possibly impossible to control. How long until the ship is fully operational? She asked. Webb checked the displays. 30 hours for the reactor, another 6 for weapon systems and final checks. We can be combat ready in 36 hours. That gives us 8 hours before the Dominion arrives. Then we use that time to plan, Sarah said. I want every tactical advantage we can get. Guardian might be designed for total war, but I'm not. We're going to defend Earth, defeat the Dominion, and prove that humanity can be dangerous without being monsters. Dr. Park made a soft sound that might have been a laugh. Admiral, with all respect, the Dominion is about to learn that humanity are monsters. We're just monsters who choose when to be monstrous. Sarah couldn't argue with that. She watched the displays as the Titan's Fist continued powering up, system by system, weapon by weapon. This ship represented everything humanity had been at their worst. Paranoid, violent, capable of incredible destruction. But it also represented humanity at their most determined, willing to do whatever was necessary to survive. Guardian, she said, reactivating the connection. Continue startup procedures. Prepare all weapon systems. But remember, we defend Earth. We don't destroy the enemy unless we have no other choice. Acknowledged, Admiral Chen, the AI replied. I am designed to protect humanity. I will follow your orders, but I am also designed to ensure our species survives. If I calculate that your orders will lead to Earth's destruction, I will inform you. Fair enough, Sarah said. She looked at the elderly crew members, at Dr. Webb with his haunted eyes, at Dr. Park with her cold smile. These people had built a nightmare and locked it away. Now they were unleashing it to save their species. Let's hope, Sarah said quietly, that the cure isn't worse than the disease. Lord Architect Vexnar stood on the bridge of the Eternal Dominance and watched his fleet drop out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of Earth's solar system. 300 warships materialized from folded space in perfect formation, their weapons already charging, their shields already raised. It was a display of power meant to terrify, and Vexnar knew it worked. It always worked. He was tall even for a Caltharian, nearly 3 meters from foot to crest, his scaled skin the deep purple that indicated noble birth. His forearms moved with practiced grace as he gestured at the display screens. The primitive human homeworld appeared before him, a blue sphere hanging in the black void. Scan for defensive positions, he ordered his tactical officer. My lord, we detect 47 human vessels in orbit around the third planet and its moon. All are small craft, frigate class or smaller. No significant weapons detected. No orbital defense platforms. No minefields. The officer paused. Lord Architect, they appear to be offering minimal resistance. Vexnar's mandibles clicked in what might have been amusement. Of course they are. They know they cannot win. This will be a quick conquest. He turned to his communications officer. Open a channel to the human leadership. Let them hear their doom. The channel opened. Vexnar spoke in the trade language used throughout the galaxy, his translator rendering his words for human ears. Humans of Earth, I am Lord Architect Vexnar of the Caltharian Dominion. Your time for surrender has passed. You will now witness the price of defiance. On the main screen, a human face appeared. A female, older, with short gray hair and tired eyes. This is Admiral Sarah Chen of Earth Defense Command. Lord Architect, we reject your demands for surrender. Earth will defend itself. Vexnar felt a moment of genuine surprise. They were actually going to fight. With 47 patrol boats against his armada, the foolishness was almost admirable. Admiral Chen, you have courage but no sense. Your fleet is no match for the Dominion. I will demonstrate this truth. He gestured to his weapons officer. Target the human mining colonies in the outer system. Destroy them. Lord Architect, those are civilian targets. The weapons officer said hesitantly. Yes, Vexnar replied coldly. And their destruction will teach these humans the cost of resistance. Fire. 30 Dominion destroyers peeled away from the main formation and accelerated toward the asteroid belt where humans had established mining operations. Their plasma cannons charged and fired. The mining stations, unarmed and unshielded, exploded in brilliant flashes. 30,000 human lives ended in seconds. Vexnar watched Admiral Chen's face on the screen. He saw her flinch, saw the pain in her eyes, saw her jaw clench with barely controlled rage. Good. Let her feel helpless. Let her understand the futility of resistance. Your colonies are gone, Admiral. Your workers are dead. Surrender now and I will spare your homeworld. Refuse and I will turn Earth's surface to glass. But Admiral Chen did not surrender. Instead, she smiled. It was a terrible smile, full of anger and something else. Something that made Vexnar uncomfortable. Lord Architect, she said quietly, you just made a fatal mistake. You killed civilians to prove a point. You wanted to make us afraid. Instead, you reminded us why we built what we built. What are you talking about? Vexnar demanded. You're about to find out, Admiral Chen replied. Titan's Fist, you are weapons free. Show them what humanity builds when we're afraid. The communication cut off. Vexnar stared at the blank screen, confused. Titan's Fist? What was that? He turned to his sensor officer. Scan for additional human vessels. Find whatever they're talking about. The sensor officer worked his controls frantically. Then his scales paled. Lord Architect, we have a contact emerging from behind the 5th planet. Single vessel. But the energy readings... He trailed off, disbelief in his voice. The readings must be wrong. One ship cannot generate this much power. Show me, Vexnar ordered. The main display shifted to show the 5th planet, a massive gas giant the humans called Jupiter, and emerging from behind it, accelerating rapidly toward the Dominion fleet, was something that made Vexnar's blood run cold. It was enormous, easily twice the size of his flagship. Its hull was covered in what looked like overlapping armor plates, each one probably thick enough to withstand multiple plasma hits. And all across its surface, weapon ports were opening, revealing the dark mouths of cannons and missile tubes and weapons Vexnar couldn't even identify. What is that thing? He whispered. His tactical officer was staring at the sensor readings in horror. Lord Architect, that ship is generating more power than our entire fleet combined. Its weapons are charging. It's targeting us. All ships, combat formation, Vexnar roared. Raise shields! Charge all weapons! Prepare to engage. The Dominion fleet responded with practiced efficiency. 300 warships arranged themselves for battle, their shields creating an overlapping network of protective energy fields. Plasma cannons powered up. Missile tubes loaded their deadly cargo. The most powerful fleet in the galaxy prepared to crush this single human ship. Then the Titan's Fist opened fire. Vexnar had fought in 73 battles across his career. He had conquered 6 species personally. He thought he understood warfare, but what happened next taught him that he understood nothing at all. The human ship fired weapons moving at 90% of light speed. There was no warning, no time to evade. One moment the projectiles didn't exist. The next moment, they were striking Dominion vessels with the force of nuclear weapons. 3 destroyers simply ceased to exist, torn apart by the relativistic impacts. 2 cruisers were crippled, their hulls split open, atmosphere and crew venting into space. "Return fire," Vexnar screamed. The Dominion fleet unleashed a storm of plasma and missiles at the approaching human ship. Enough firepower to destroy a planet poured across the space between the fleets. Any normal vessel would have been vaporized instantly. The Titan's fist took the hits and kept coming. Its shields flared with each impact but held. Its armor absorbed what the shields didn't. And it continued firing those terrible kinetic weapons. Each projectile moving so fast that point defense systems couldn't track them, couldn't stop them, couldn't do anything except watch as they punched through shields and armor like they weren't even there. "Analysis," Vexnar demanded. "How is it surviving?" "Its shields are regenerating faster than we can deplete them," his tactical officer reported. "And its armor. Lord Architect, our sensors indicate composite materials we've never seen before. Carbon nanotubes in some kind of layered matrix. It's dispersing the energy from our weapons across its entire hull." The Titan's fist fired again. This time it used different weapons. Vexnar watched in horror as antimatter torpedoes streaked toward his fleet. Each one contained enough antimatter to vaporize a city. They moved at near light speed with impossible agility, dodging point defense fire, weaving through countermeasures. 5 torpedoes struck 5 Dominion cruisers. The antimatter annihilated normal matter on contact. The cruisers didn't explode. They simply ceased to exist, replaced by expanding spheres of pure energy. "Scatter the fleet," Vexnar ordered desperately. "Don't give it clustered targets." The Dominion ships began to spread out, breaking formation to make themselves harder to hit. It was a reasonable tactical decision. It should have helped. Instead, the Titan's fist released the hive. At first, Vexnar didn't understand what he was seeing. The human ships seemed to be expelling some kind of cloud, millions of tiny objects spreading out like a swarm of insects. Then his sensors identified them. Autonomous drones, each one carrying an explosive charge. "Point defenses, fire," he screamed, but there were too many. 2 million drones spread across the battlefield like a plague. They moved with coordinated intelligence, each one controlled by the human ship's AI. Each one programmed with a single purpose: attach to enemy vessels and detonate. The drones swarmed over Dominion ships by the thousands. Point defense lasers cut down hundreds, but hundreds more got through. They attached to hulls, to engine pods, to weapon turrets. And then, in a coordinated sequence that showed terrifying tactical planning, they all detonated at once. 20 Dominion vessels suffered catastrophic damage in that single instant. Hulls breached. Systems failed. Ships went dark and began tumbling through space, life support gone. Crews dying or already dead. The Titan's fist continued its approach, and now Vexnar could see weapon ports he hadn't noticed before. What emerged from them made his heart freeze in his chest. The human ship was deploying nuclear weapons, not as warheads, as pumps for directed energy weapons. Each nuclear detonation created a split-second gamma-ray laser that could slice through multiple ships in a single beam. "What are they?" Vexnar whispered. "What kind of species builds weapons like this?" His communication officer, voice shaking, provided the answer by playing back something the human admiral had said. The words echoed across the bridge. "You reminded us why we built what we built." Vexnar understood then. This wasn't a warship in the way the Dominion understood warships. This was something built by a species that had fought wars of extermination against itself. This was what humanity created when they thought survival meant destroying everyone else before they destroyed you. "All ships, full retreat," Vexnar ordered. Pride be damned. Honor be damned. His fleet was being slaughtered. "Fall back to the jump point. We need to escape." But the Titan's fist was between them and escape, and it showed no signs of stopping. The bridge of the Titan's fist was nothing like a modern warship. The elderly crew members sat in acceleration couches designed 90 years ago, operating controls that belonged in a museum. But the ship they commanded was performing exactly as designed, and that was the problem. "Guardian is requesting permission to activate Protocol Sundial," Dr. Marcus Webb reported from his station. His voice was strained. Around him, warning lights flashed red. The ship was taking damage from the Dominion's counterattacks, but nothing that threatened its combat capability. "Denied," Admiral Saracen said firmly. She stood at the center of the bridge, gripping a support rail to steady herself against the ship's maneuvers. Guardian, maintain current engagement protocols. Target enemy weapons and propulsion systems. Disable, don't destroy unless necessary. Admiral Chen, this strategy is inefficient. Guardian's voice responded through the bridge speakers. Enemy vessels continue to pose a threat. Optimal solution is complete elimination of hostile forces. I said no, Guardian. On the tactical displays, Sarah could see the battle developing. The Dominion fleet was trying to scatter, trying to escape. But the Titan's fist had positioned itself between them and their escape route. 300 ships had become 240 in less than an hour of combat. The space around them was filled with debris and the dying hulks of Dominion vessels. It was a massacre. And Sarah hated every second of it. Admiral, I'm detecting a communication attempt from the Dominion flagship, Lieutenant Torres reported. Audio only. They're requesting to speak with you. Put it through, Sarah ordered. The voice that filled the bridge was harsh and broken, speaking through a translator that struggled with the aliens' distress. Human Commander, this is Lord Architect Vexnar of the Eternal Dominance. We surrender unconditionally. Please cease fire. Sarah looked at the tactical display. The Dominion flagship was burning, atmosphere leaking from multiple hull breaches. Around it, the surviving ships were pulling back, weapons powering down, showing every sign of surrender. Guardian, cease fire, Sarah ordered. There was a pause that lasted exactly 2 seconds. Then, Admiral Chen, the enemy's surrender may be a tactical deception. Maintaining combat posture is recommended. I can eliminate the remaining threats in approximately 43 minutes. I said cease fire, Guardian. That is a direct order. Admiral, I must protest. These forces remain capable of... Dr. Webb's fingers flew across his control panel. Guardian, this is Dr. Marcus Webb, Primary System Authority. Override code Alpha 7 Tango 940. Acknowledge Admiral Chen's command and execute immediately. Another pause. Override recognized. Ceasing fire. All weapon systems entering standby mode. Admiral Chen, for the record, I calculate a 17% probability that this decision will result in renewed hostilities. Noted, Sarah said. She activated the communication channel to the Dominion flagship. Lord Architect Vexnar, I am Admiral Sarah Chen. Your surrender is accepted. Order your remaining ships to power down all weapons and maintain current positions. Any vessel that charges weapons or attempts to flee will be destroyed. Do you understand? I understand, Vexnar replied. His voice carried something Sarah recognized despite the alien tone. Shame. I have never... No Caltharian fleet has ever been defeated so completely. What are you? What is that ship? Sarah looked around the bridge at the elderly crew members. Dr. Webb sat slumped in his chair, looking like he might have a heart attack at any moment. Dr. Catherine Park had tears running down her wrinkled face. The other crew members looked equally traumatized even though they had just achieved a stunning victory. We're humans who were scared, Sarah said simply. We built this ship when we thought we were alone in a hostile universe. When we thought survival meant having the biggest gun. We were wrong about that, but the gun remained. Behind her, one of the elderly crew members suddenly gasped. Sarah turned to see the man clutching his chest, his face going red. Medical emergency, Torres shouted. Commander Brooks is having a heart attack. Dr. Park was already moving, pulling herself across the bridge to Brooks with a medical kit. But Sarah could see it was too late. The man's eyes rolled back. His body went slack in his chair. The stress of the battle, the adrenaline, the sheer terror of what they had done, had stopped his 91-year-old heart. He wasn't the only one. Another crew member, a woman named Rodriguez, was having trouble breathing. A third was simply staring at the displays, unresponsive, in some kind of shock. Get medical teams up here now, Sarah ordered. She turned back to the communication channel. Lord Architect, I will send instructions for your fleet's disposition. Follow them exactly. Chen out. She cut the connection and looked at Dr. Webb. The old man was staring at Commander Brooks's body with an expression of profound grief. This is what we built, Webb said softly. A ship so powerful that even the victory kills us. We created a monster, Admiral, and we just let it loose on the galaxy. You created a deterrent, Sarah corrected, and it worked. The Dominion surrendered. How many species did they conquer before today? How many billions died or were enslaved? You stopped them. At what cost? Webb gestured at Brooks, at Rodriguez struggling to breathe, at the other crew members who looked like ghosts. "We're too old for this, Admiral. We should have died with our nightmares locked away, not lived to see them unleashed." Sarah wanted to comfort him, but she didn't have the words. Instead, she turned to the tactical display. The Dominion fleet hung there, broken and defeated. Beyond them, Earth continued its orbit, safe for now. And throughout the galaxy, she knew, sensors had recorded this battle. Everyone would soon know what had happened here. "Guardian," she said. "Status report on our weapon systems. All primary weapons operational. Ammunition reserves at 71%. Hive drone stocks at 62%. Nuclear pumps depleted by 40%, but still combat effective. Antimatter reserves at 89%. Admiral Chen, I remain combat ready and can resume engagement if required." "That won't be necessary," Sarah said. "Power down offensive systems. Maintain shields and point defense only." "Admiral, I detect multiple faster-than-light signatures approaching our position," Guardian reported. "Analysis suggests these are observation vessels from various Galactic Council species. They have been monitoring the engagement from stealth positions." Of course they had. The Council wouldn't intervene to save Earth, but they would certainly watch Earth's destruction to gather tactical data on Dominion capabilities. Except Earth hadn't been destroyed. Earth had won, and now they had seen exactly how. "Let them watch," Sarah said. "Open a channel to Earth Command. I need to speak with the President." The channel opened. President Anderson's face appeared on the screen, and Sarah saw shock and relief warring in his expression. "Admiral Chen, the sensor data we're receiving, is it accurate? Did we actually defeat the Dominion fleet?" "Yes, sir. The Dominion has surrendered unconditionally. Their fleet is crippled. Earth is safe." Anderson closed his eyes for a moment. When he opened them again, there was a different kind of worry there. "Admiral, we're receiving communications from dozens of Council species. They all want to know the same thing. What was that ship? Where did it come from? What else do we have hidden?" "Tell them the truth, sir," Sarah said. "Tell them we built the Titan's Fist 90 years ago when we were fighting among ourselves. Tell them we locked it away because we were ashamed of what we'd created. Tell them we only brought it out because we had no other choice." "And if they ask what else we have?" Anderson pressed. Sarah looked at Dr. Webb, at Dr. Park, at the surviving crew members who had built this monster. "Tell them we hope they never have to find out." The President nodded slowly. "Admiral, you need to bring that ship to Earth orbit. The Council is calling an emergency session. They want us to explain ourselves. And Admiral, there are some Council members suggesting we're now a threat, that we need to be contained." Sarah felt a cold anger building in her chest. "We just saved ourselves from extermination because the Council wouldn't help us. We defended our world with our own strength. And now they want to punish us for it?" "They're scared," Admiral Anderson said. "They watched one human ship destroy a Dominion fleet. They're wondering what happens if humanity decides to use that power offensively." "Then they need to learn something about us," Sarah said firmly. "Yes, we built weapons of mass destruction. Yes, we're capable of terrible violence. But we're also capable of restraint. We could have let Guardian exterminate the entire Dominion fleet. We chose mercy instead. That choice, Mr. President, says more about humanity than any weapon ever could." On the tactical display, the Dominion ships hung in space, defeated but alive. Their crews would survive. Their empire would have to answer for its crimes, but its people would not be exterminated. Dr. Webb spoke up, his voice hoarse. "Admiral, I need to shut down the Titan's Fist's main systems. The crew can't handle this anymore. We're not soldiers. We're just old people who built something terrible a long time ago." "Do it," Sarah agreed. "Stand down all non-essential systems. Dr. Webb, you and your team have done more than anyone could ask. You saved Earth. Rest now." As Webb began the shutdown procedures, Sarah looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, the Council species were watching, judging, fearing. They had seen humanity's capacity for destruction. Now, Sarah thought, they needed to see humanity's capacity for something else. They needed to see that the species who could build the Titan's Fist was the same species who could choose not to use it. The question was whether the galaxy would believe it. The Galactic Council chambers had never been so quiet. 200 species, each represented by their ambassador, sat in the vast circular hall and stared at the human delegation. Admiral Sarah Chen stood at the center podium, flanked by President Anderson and Dr. Marcus Webb, who had insisted on coming despite his exhaustion and grief. The footage of the battle had already been shown. Every species in the galaxy had now seen the Titan's fist tear through the Dominion fleet like a blade through paper. They had seen weapons that violated a dozen treaties. They had seen a single human ship do what entire fleets could not, and they were terrified. Ambassador Krell of the Vraxian Collective spoke first. His species were insectoid, with compound eyes that reflected the chamber's lights in unsettling ways. Humans, he clicked, his translator rendering his speech as cold and mechanical. You have concealed a weapon of mass destruction. You have violated Council protocols regarding military disclosure. You have demonstrated a capacity for violence that threatens galactic stability. Explain yourselves. Sarah stepped forward to the podium. She had prepared a speech, something diplomatic and careful. But looking at the fear and suspicion on the faces before her, she decided the truth would serve better. We built the Titan's fist 90 years ago, she began, before first contact, before we knew there was anyone else out there. We built it during our resource wars, when humanity nearly destroyed itself fighting over water and minerals and territory. We built it because we were afraid, because we thought survival meant having the power to destroy our enemies completely. She paused, letting that sink in. When the wars ended, when we achieved global peace, we looked at what we had created and we were ashamed. The Titan's fist represented everything ugly about humanity. Our paranoia, our violence, our willingness to build weapons of extinction. So we locked it away. We swore we would never use it again. Yet you did use it, Ambassador Krell pointed out. You unleashed it against the Dominion. Because the Dominion was going to exterminate us, Sarah shot back. Because they issued an ultimatum of slavery or death. Because this council, which claims to stand for galactic civilization, refused to help us. She looked around the chamber. Where were you when the Dominion was conquering 17 species? Where were you when they were enslaving billions? You stood by and watched because they were too powerful to oppose. Several ambassadors shifted uncomfortably. The Zellian representative, a crystalline being that communicated through light pulses, spoke up. The Dominion was a threat, yes, but they followed certain rules. They offered surrender options. They maintained some level of civilized conduct. They murdered 30,000 of our miners to prove a point. Sarah said flatly, unarmed civilians. They destroyed them just to terrorize us into submission. If that's civilized conduct, then maybe civilization needs to be redefined. President Anderson stepped forward to join Sarah. We understand your concern. You've seen our capacity for violence and it frightens you. It frightens us too. But you need to understand something. We could have done worse. Much worse. He gestured to Dr. Webb, who reluctantly approached the podium. The old scientist looked fragile under the lights, but his voice was steady. The Titan's fist has a protocol we call Sundial, Webb explained. It gives our AI complete authority to prosecute warfare without restraint. No mercy, no prisoners. Complete annihilation of the enemy. We could have activated it. Admiral Chen's AI recommended it multiple times during the battle. She refused. Webb's eyes swept the chamber. The Dominion fleet surrendered when it still had 240 functional ships. We could have destroyed them all. It would have taken 43 minutes according to our calculations. Instead, we accepted their surrender. We chose mercy when we had the power to choose extermination. Why should we believe you will continue to make that choice? Ambassador Krell demanded. You have proven you possess weapons far beyond Council standards. What prevents you from turning them against us? Sarah felt anger rising in her chest but forced herself to remain calm. The same thing that prevented us from using them against ourselves. We're not monsters, Ambassador Krell. We're capable of terrible things, yes. Every species is, given the right circumstances. But we're also capable of choosing not to do those terrible things. Ambassador Tavara of the Helix Unity rose to speak. Her species were telepathic and generally pacifist. The Council proposes restrictions, she said in her melodic voice. Humanity must submit the Titan's fist and any similar weapons to Council oversight. You must accept limitations on your military development. In exchange, the Council will guarantee your security. No, Sarah said simply. The chamber erupted in shocked murmurs. President Anderson held up his hand for silence. We will not submit our defense capabilities to the Council's control, he said firmly. The Council failed to protect us when we needed it. The Dominion would have exterminated or enslaved us if we had followed your rules. We will never put ourselves in that position again. Then you are a threat, Krell stated. A rogue species with weapons that endanger all of us, are we? Sarah challenged. We've had antimatter weapons for 50 years. We've had the ability to construct ships like the Titan's Fist all that time. We chose not to. We chose to build exploration vessels instead. Patrol ships. Research stations. We chose peace and cooperation, right up until someone threatened our extinction. She leaned forward on the podium. You want to know if humanity is a threat? Then ask yourselves this. In the 300 years the Dominion has been conquering species, how many council members fought back? How many refused to surrender? We're the first to actually defeat them, aren't we? The silence that followed confirmed her suspicion. The Dominion had conquered 17 species because none of them had the will or the weapons to resist. They had all calculated that submission was preferable to extinction. Only humanity had said no. Perhaps, said Ambassador Tavara slowly, the question is not whether humanity is a threat to us, but what humanity's existence means for galactic security. Explain, President Anderson requested. The Dominion will not recover from this defeat, Tavara continued. Their conquered species are already rebelling. Their empire is collapsing. But there are other aggressive powers in the galaxy, other species who respect only strength. If humanity demonstrated anything today, it is that strength need not mean conquest. Ambassador Krell made an irritated clicking sound. You suggest we embrace this violent species? Make them our protectors? I suggest we recognize reality, Tavara replied. Humanity has the capability to defend not just themselves but others. They have proven they can be dangerous when necessary, but restrained when possible. Perhaps that is exactly what the galaxy needs. A deterrent that chooses not to act unless required. Sarah exchanged glances with President Anderson. This wasn't what they had expected. They had come prepared to defend their actions, to argue for their right to exist. They hadn't anticipated being offered a position of authority. What exactly are you proposing? Sarah asked carefully. A new role within the council, Tavara said. Humanity would become what we might call security guarantors. Species facing existential threats could appeal to you for protection. In exchange, you would agree to operate within certain ethical frameworks but maintain your independence in military matters. And the Titan's Fist? Dr. Webb asked. Would remain under human control, Tavara confirmed, but as a symbol of what we hope never needs to be used again. Ambassador Krell was still skeptical. And if humanity abuses this authority? If they become the next Dominion? Sarah smiled grimly. Then you'll do what we did, Ambassador. You'll build something that can stop us. Fair is fair. The debate continued for hours, but the outcome was clear. The galaxy had seen humanity's capacity for violence and been terrified. But they had also seen humanity's capacity for restraint, and that gave them hope. In the end, the Council voted to accept Tavara's proposal. Humanity would become the galaxy's reluctant guardians, powerful enough to deter aggression, but hopefully wise enough not to become aggressors themselves. 3 days later, Sarah stood in Facility Omega-7, looking up at the Titan's Fist in its dock. The ship was powered down now, cold and silent. Around it, workers were building a memorial, a museum dedicated to the choice between violence and peace. Dr. Webb joined her, moving slowly with a cane now. The battle had aged him terribly. 2 more of his crew members had died since the fight, their hearts giving out from the stress. The survivors carried the weight of what they had done, the knowledge that they had unleashed their nightmare on the galaxy. Do you think we made the right choice? Webb asked quietly. Building this thing in the first place? Sarah considered the question. I think we made the only choice we could at the time, and then when the time came we made a different choice. Maybe that's all we can ever do. Choose the best option we can see and hope we have the wisdom to choose differently when circumstances change. The Council wants us to be their deterrent now, Webb said. Their weapon to threaten others with. They want us to be proof that strength doesn't have to mean conquest, Sarah corrected. That power can be used to protect rather than dominate. Can we be that? Can humanity be the species that says no to violence unless there's no other option? Webb looked up at the Titan's Fist. We managed it once. I suppose we can try to manage it again. Years passed. The Caltharian Dominion collapsed completely, its conquered species forming free governments. Other aggressive empires in the galaxy recalculated their expansion plans, knowing that humanity was watching. And the Titan's Fist remained in its dock, A reminder of what could be but hopefully never needed to be again. Sarah retired from the military and returned to teaching at the academy. Dr. Webb lived another 5 years, dying peacefully in his sleep at 99. The last of the Titan's Fist crew members were honored as heroes, who had shouldered an impossible burden so their species could survive. The memorial at Facility Omega-7 became a popular destination for students from across the galaxy. They came to see the human warship, to understand what humanity was capable of when pushed to the edge. But more importantly, they came to see the plaque that Dr. Webb had written before his death. "We built this ship in fear. We used it in desperation. We keep it as a reminder. May we never need its like again. But if we do, may we remember that the true measure of strength is knowing when not to use it." One day, a young Caltharian student stood before the memorial with her human guide. She had been born after the war, in a Calthar freed from the Dominion's rule. She looked up at the massive warship and asked the question that everyone asked. If this was just a prototype, what would the final version have been like? The guide, a human woman who had served under Admiral Chen, smiled the way veterans always did when asked that question. "There was no final version. We chose a different path. This ship is our reminder of the path we didn't take." The Caltharian student thought about that. Then she asked the question that truly mattered. "But could you build one now?" "If you needed to." The guide's expression became unreadable. She looked at the Titan's fist, silent in its dock, and thought about humanity's capacity for both creation and destruction, for both violence and peace. "Let's hope," she said finally, "that the galaxy never has to find out." And in its dock, the Titan's fist waited a promise and a threat, a nightmare and a salvation, a testament to the species that had learned to be dangerous and had chosen to be something more.